County, what's going on in the market, where do we think interest rates are going, inventory and appreciation, and we're going to talk about 5-1 ARM. We're having some great success with that right now. Our ARM program is at a 5.25% interest rate. So if you're talking to people and they say interest rates are too high, we say, well, would you like an interest rate in the 5s? I can do that for you. So we'll get into that a little bit, how that works. And once again, all this is to help you educate your buyers and sellers, and also give you some ideas. One idea for to close one more deal. Okay, so this just came out. Zillow, Philadelphia is number 5 in the hottest markets. Okay, you can Google that article, you can read it, you can talk to your clients and mention that Philadelphia is number 5 as one of the hottest markets nationwide. Also, existing home forecast. We're looking at last year, we were 3.94 million. They're finalizing those numbers of transactions of existing home sales. Okay, we're not talking about new construction. New construction is a different bucket. Okay, and you can see here, you have Realtor.com, you have Fannie Mae, Wells Fargo, on and on. They're predicting that 2025 will be a little bit better than 2024. Income per state. You can turn around and look. Pennsylvania, $87,000 is what you need to be able to afford a house in Pennsylvania. Once again, real estate is local. So what is out in Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, Bucks County, completely different. Everybody knows real estate is local. I'll probably say that about 100 times. Okay, but for the state of Pennsylvania, we're looking around 87,000. So what does that mean? In Philadelphia, I believe it's like 91 or 93. I forget the exact number. For qualifying for the medium house, average house. What does that mean? Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, 2 people, because most people aren't making, 90,000 plus for just one individual person. And you can see state by state, all the different numbers. Philadelphia or Pennsylvania is, reasonable on that list. Okay. Median days on market. This is national number. Okay, we're looking at around 70 days, a house is on the market before it sells. What you can see, and the reason why I show this, is it's the ebb and flow, the real estate cycle that you have. So you start in January, where inventory, time to sell, generally is the longest, and then you work up to June or July, where you have the strongest part of the market, where houses go up in value, times days on market shortens, and then it comes back down in September, October to December, and it starts all over again. That's a standard real estate cycle, but right now we're running around 70 days on there. Philadelphia, days on market. Okay, what we're showing here is median days on market. The reason why we show median days on market and not average, you could have a house that is a shell that's sitting on the market or completely overpriced, whatever the case may be, and it's on the market for a year. Okay, that's going to really throw things off. So you go by median, and median means this: if there's 1,000 homes for sale, you look at the median, which would be 500. So 500 houses sell faster than the 98 days, and 500 houses, take longer than that 98 days. But you could see it's pretty much the same in 2024 to 2025. We have the median rent around 1,700 in Philadelphia. Inventory is a little bit down versus 2024. 2024, we had 2,400 this time last year. Okay, and what we're looking at is it's a 7-day window. So we're not looking at where the MLS will show monthly numbers. We have a breakdown through Altos week by week. Okay, median sale price, we're a little bit higher, $11,000 more that houses are selling for. A lot of people saying, I'm waiting for the housing crash. Well, we'll get to that. You'll be waiting for a while. And then also price cuts. So right now we have less homes getting price cut versus last year, 32% versus 35. Okay. Now let's look at Bucks County. Bucks County days on market. Last year was 56. Now we're up to 81 days on the market. Okay. Inventory, about the same, 290 versus 286. We have median rent, it's $2,750. Purchase price, about the same. last year versus this year, and then price cuts about the same. So this time last January versus now, about the same. The only big difference is days on market. I don't know if you guys are seeing that. Days on market, taking a little bit longer, but these are the numbers for Bucks County. Okay, good news. 75% of Americans still think buying a home is the American dream. It's a good thing, right? People want to buy houses still. Okay, interest rates. Where are people forecasting interest rates to be in 2025? So if we look Goldman Sachs, Realtor.com, Fannie Mae, Bright, blah, 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 you see it. So, and this is the average, about 6.1, 6.3, 6.4. We're nowhere close to that. We're closer to the 7% right now. Housing Wire, they're giving a range that they think throughout 2025, interest rates will hit as low as 5.75 and as high as 7.25. We pretty much hit 7.25 already as far as that. So this gives you an idea of what they're thinking about as far as where interest rates are going to trend in 2025. One thing we know for certain, they have no clue. Because, we've been saying for 3 years, 4 years, interest rates are going to come down. Could it come down? They still haven't come down, right? So that's what you have. But these are like the smart people in the room, okay? So where's interest rates at right now? We have Mortgage News Daily. It's a good site that you can go on, Mortgage News Daily. You can Google it, Mortgage News Daily. What they do is they survey over 100 lenders throughout the country. And they turn around and they come up every day telling you, hey, this is where the 30-year fixed interest rate is. Or if you're looking at a 15-year or whatever the case may be, FHA, conventional loan, what have you. So they do the survey and they publish it on their website every day, okay? So we can see here where the interest rates are at around 7%. Now, what they're doing, there's some qualifying questions here. One, this is conventional financing. Two, it's a primary residence. You're moving in a home as a primary residence. It's a single family. It's not multifamily. Okay, you're putting 25% down, and you have 780 and above credit scores. So this is a pretty strong buyer, obviously, with the credit scores putting 25% down, all that. So if somebody, there's something called loan level pricing adjustment. If somebody had a 700 credit score or 720 credit score doing a regular conventional loan, your interest rate would be higher. There's hits associated to that. But this gives you an idea of where interest rates are. So if you're talking to a client and you're saying, hey, where's interest rate? Pull up your Mortgage News Daily. You save that as one of your favorites. Boom. And you can show them, hey, this is where it's at. This is where the rates have been fluctuating. And guess what? Same time last year, these were the interest rates were. Fed, they're meeting. And they're coming out tomorrow with if they're going to cut rates or not. Well, there's a 99% chance they're not cutting rates. Okay, this comes from the CME Group. CME Group is another site you can go on, and what they do is they're a predictor. They watch the Fed and they predict of if the Fed's going to cut rates, they're going to raise rates, what they're going to do. So Fed cut, not likely. We'll find out tomorrow. Okay, dot plot. The Fed comes out and they forecast. They tell you what they're thinking. Okay, so the dot plot. This is what they're saying, what they're going to do with the federal fund rate in 2025. Okay, right now the federal fund rate is 4.375. Now, federal fund rate is what banks borrow money amongst themselves, and the Fed sets that rate. Okay, so it's not a 10-year treasury, it's not the 30-year bond, it's the federal fund rate. Okay, and most of the Fed members are saying that they believe that the federal fund rate will go down to 3.75. So that means 2 cuts. Because when they cut, they generally cut 0.25%. So they're talking about 2 cuts, okay? That's what they're predicting. That's what they're outlaying. That's what they're telling people, okay? Now, why do we want the federal fund rate to come down? Typically, the 30-year fix sort of follows the federal fund rate, okay? And you can see here on this chart over time how it follows. It's not 100% exact. It's not dead on because, once again, a mortgage is a mortgage bond, okay? That is something that's sold on Wall Street. So when somebody gets a mortgage bond, it's bundled into a mortgage bond, that 30-year fix, and then it is sold. Who buys those? You're talking about insurance companies. You're talking about 401ks, foreign countries. So it's a completely separate item. Okay, and once again, what we're showing here, we got this from Mortgage News Daily, and it just shows you where the rates were at in 2024 going into this year. You can see right here, interest rates were right around that 6% in September. And what happened last year in September? The Fed started cutting rates. Sort of doesn't make sense, right? You figure, hey, if they're going to cut rates, why did my rates go up? But they did, okay? Well, when they started cutting last year. Okay, the Fed follows PCE, okay? The PCE is just like the PPI and the CPI. It's just their favorite tool of what they look at. So right now, PCE is at 2.8%. Now, what the Fed's trying to tell us, or what they've said already, is they want to come to a neutral rate, okay? A neutral rate. Right now, we're restrictive. So if inflation is at 2.8, they have what they call an R star, and what that does is they're just saying, hey, whatever the inflation rate, you add 0.75. So neutral, as the definition of the Fed, is 3.55%, okay? Now, we know what the current rate is. We saw that already, which is 4.375. So we're restrictive. So the federal fund rate is much higher than what the Fed is saying where they want to go to, which is neutral. Well, we would have to cut, or they would have to cut 0.825 to become neutral. So that where that's right there is at least 3 rate cuts because every rate is 25% generally, right? Also, they're forecasting the PCE to come down to 2.5 off of the 2.8. So in reality, if that happens and inflation is coming down slowly but coming down, we're over a percentage point higher. They've predicted, per the dot plot, they're going to cut twice, 50 basis points, so they'll still be restrictive. What they're saying is this year they want to become neutral, not accommodating. Accommodating would be under. We're nowhere even close to accommodating. During COVID, they were accommodating. They brought the federal fund rate down to 0. That's accommodating. Right now, we're still restrictive, okay? So I'm thinking that the Fed, especially if inflation keeps on coming down, that the Fed may cut more than the 2 times that they're talking about right now, okay? Shelter, a part of PCE, represents, and this is rents, represents 40% of the PCE, and the PPI and the CPI, all these inflation gauge are all have shelter as a really large component. Now, I had somebody on a podcast talk about how he believes that rents are too high, and he believes that they're going to come down. Right, Ed?
Stuff we've dealt with in 2024, the same objections we're going to get from buyers or sellers, landlords or tenants, whoever you're representing. I think it's going to be the same hardships. I can tell you from experience, I mean, the rental rates are going up, but people just don't make the money to pay. So I think at some point, I think the rental rates start to come back down a little bit on the investing side. There's a lot of vacancies out there because people just can't afford them. But
anyway, so you could see here how the shelter costs, the inflation on rents have been coming down, and they're steadily coming down. So that's why the Federal Reserve is believing that inflation will keep on coming down because the large component, which is the 40%, is coming down. Okay, unemployment numbers. The Fed has a dual mandate: fight inflation, keep employment numbers high, okay, or unemployment low. So we can see here how the unemployment numbers have been slowly but surely going up, okay? And we believe that they still may continue to tick up a little bit more. Nothing crazy, but a little bit more. Now, here we have the forecast for the Fed. The Fed right now, or the unemployment rate, is 4.25, or 4.2. Well, there's 14 members believe that the unemployment rate is going to stay in between 4.2 to 4.3, okay? 5 members think there's going to be in between 4.4 and 4.5. Well, if unemployment goes up just a little bit to 4.4, that's going to surprise 14 members. And if it goes to 4.6, every member will be surprised. Remember, they have a dual mandate. They want to keep unemployment numbers, low. So depending on what goes on in the market, depends on what goes on with this new administration, what happens, Who knows? Unemployment numbers have been trending higher. If they continue trending higher, the Fed may cut rates more than those 2 times per the dot plot. So, bottom line, we're thinking that unemployment numbers will go up a little bit more. Nothing crazy, but a little bit more. And we're thinking that the Fed will cut rates more than just those 2 times. But nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows. Okay. Last thing about interest rates we're going to get into. 10-year Treasury. A lot of people say, hey, I follow the 10-year Treasury. I follow the 10-year Treasury. Okay. 10-year Treasury is a Treasury that the United States government sells. Okay. The mortgage-backed security, mortgage bond, is a mortgage bond. 2 completely different things. Okay. And right now we're running around 4.6 as far as that. Now, you have the relationship to Treasury. When you talk about that people think that's like guaranteed money because the United States government would have to default. Okay. A mortgage-backed security isn't. You could have people refinance. They could sell their house. They could go into foreclosure. Things can happen with that mortgage bond. Still super, super safe, but not as safe as a 10-year Treasury. So there is a spread, okay? And that spread, historically, if we look over the past 3 years, runs anywhere between 1.6 to 2%. Last October, when the spread jumped all the way to 3%, you may remember interest rates were 8%. So you have the 10-year Treasury was a 5, the spread was 3, which was causing the interest rate to be around that 8%. Right now, spread's been coming down. We're at 2.5. If spread comes down to the high part of the historical norm, 2%, we could see interest rates drop another 0.5%. And what causes all this to go on is just stability in the markets. What happened was Silicon Valley Bank, when they had those banks start going under, that's when these spreads really jumped and went out of whack. So that's what ended up happening right in there. Okay, so we look for the spread to continue coming down a little bit, which will help interest rates as well. Okay, inventory forecast. Everybody's talking about they're believing more inventory to hit the market in 2025 than in 2024. Okay, this map right here shows inventory levels nationwide. Okay, we're still well below 46% versus 2019 inventory levels. Okay, but then there's states like Florida, Texas, and in the South where they have higher inventory levels. Okay, so when you hear these people talking about, hey, inventory levels are up, remember, real estate's local. Real estate's local. Also, if you take out Texas and Florida, that represents 40% of that additional inventory that everybody's talking about, just 2 states alone. Okay, so there's a ton of inventory down here. You can see New Jersey, minus 60, New York. You can see the Northeast not building quite as much as they do in the South. Okay, so inventory is still an issue for us. That's why we always say real estate is local. If we look here, inventory levels, pre-pandemic, we were ranging anywhere between a million, 1.1, 1.2 million. Right now, we're running around 600, 700,000 in inventory. So we're still restrictive. So when people turn around and tell you, hey, inventory's going up, I read this article, whatever the case may be, yes, but you really need to look at 2019 when we consider that more a normal market. Okay? Inventory levels are still low. And if you take out Texas and Florida, really low. Okay, home price appreciation. Okay, we're looking at appreciation to go up, to continue to go up. Okay, and these are all the smart people in the room. Maybe not too smart, who knows? Okay, so we can see here, I already mentioned about the cycle. We start in January, prices go up to June, July, then it comes down, then it comes up. But if you notice, where does it go? Up. And we're looking since 2018-19, the prices have done nothing but go up, not down, even with interest rates at 8%, interest rates at 7%. Okay, so this right here, a little blurry, but This right here is a huge thing. And this is one of my favorite things to show people when I'm talking, if you want to pass them around. This is the history of appreciation since they started, keeping track of it. So we're saying since 1942, okay? Since 1942, we've had 7 down years. So this is super powerful, especially I had a client on the phone, or, boyfriend, girlfriend on the phone, and the father was saying, no, the market's going to crash, the market's going to crash. And I said, you may be 100% right. The market may crash. Nobody has the crystal ball. Thank you. But history tells a different story. And unless you happen to be a day trader, normally when you buy a house, you're in that house for 10 years. There's never been a 10-year span of time that houses have not appreciated, even during the great housing crisis here when you had those 5 years. And most people, because this happened relatively recent in the 2000s, that people think, houses come down. There was a lot of things going on back then. And back then were no income type of loans, where some people call them liar loans, that kind of thing. You fogged up the mirror, you were approved. Subprime loans, there was some crazy stuff going on. None of that stuff really exists today. A super, super, super small fragment with like the DSCR type stuff, but very, 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 very small. Right now, pretty much everybody is a full doc loan. So it's a pretty powerful tool when you show this to people when they feel, that the market's going to crash. It may. Nobody has the crystal ball. We don't know. Okay, so this is just some demographics of the United States. So we have 136 million households, 45 million renters, 91 million own. And out of those 91 million, there's 37 trillion, or 407,000 per household in equity. Okay, people own free and clear, 35 million, about a third. Okay, which represents about $20 trillion, or 571. These people really don't care about interest rates, because what are they going to be? Cash buyers. Okay, even if the people who have mortgages, 56 million. There's 17 trillion, which is $311,000 of equity in homes. There's a ton of equity out there. And if you look at the appreciation, why? 2020, 10%, 21, 19%, 6%. If you bought a house, you have appreciation. There is 1 million people out there that are underwater, about $30,000. And where are they at? Most likely they're in Texas or in Florida, where there's a ton of inventory, and that's causing downward pressure on home values. Okay, so kind of interesting. And then I'm going to blow over this pretty quickly, but what is going on as far as housing, and how much more housing do we actually need? And this breaks down through generation. So we have baby boomers, Gen X's, millennials, Gen Z's, and you can see here the current home ownership. And then when they were age 30, 48% of them owned homes, millennials 33%, and then obviously Gen Z's, they haven't hit 30, so they're not there. So let's say we turn around and we take millennials, and if we turn around and we look from 30 to 40, now the jump is 33 to 55%. Okay, so if we have that, well, guess what? Millennials, the bulk of them haven't hit 40 yet. So if we break down these numbers, there's about 8.5 million more houses the millennials should be buying in the next 10 years when they hit their 40. If we turn around and look at Gen Z's, well, there's only 8% that own houses, but in the next 10 years when they hit 30 years old, if they do the same as the millennials, they'll be up to around 33%. That's going to represent 17 million. So if you have 17 million and you have your 8 million, it's 25 million more housing. Now, With the first-time home buyers, you're taking inventory off. Okay? If I'm a baby boomer or a Gen Xer and I'm selling a house, 70% of the time I'm buying. So I'm selling, bringing inventory in, but then I'm buying, taking it off. So that's an even. But the first-time home buyers are just taking, not adding, just taking. Okay? So now you're going to have millennials and Gen Zs double up. Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever the case may be, right? Double up. So instead of 25 million, even if we take 10 million off, some of the baby boomers may pass away and they're going to add inventory. Maybe there'll be about 15 million more homes needed. We're not building 15 million more homes. We're not building over a million homes a year, for that. So inventory is still going to be tight for the foreseeable future unless something dramatically changes, okay? So that's why housing appreciation may flatten out, but we shouldn't see a major correction. Okay, once again, we showed you this a little bit earlier, sort of. If we turn around and we look 17, 18, 19, when we consider a normal market, at any given point, you're talking about inventory in between 1.1 to 1.3 million homes on the market. Right now, we're looking at here under a million. But population, there's 12 million more people in this country than what was around in 2018. Inventory is still low. We're nowhere close to normal market, 1.1 to 1.3. Okay, law of supply and demand. There's more demand than supply. What's going to happen? Prices are going to stay high. There's still going to be multiple offers, things like that, okay? So just to give you an idea of, hey, I think interest rates will drift down a little bit, but I don't see them going in the fives. I see them being mid sixes, maybe low sixes. I think they will trend down a little bit. I think inventory, especially in the Northeast, will still be a little bit on the tight side. I think home appreciation is still going to go up, especially when you see this and you see supply and demand. And you see in Philadelphia that we have less inventory this year so far than we did last year. Okay? It's not for a first-time home buyer. This is for somebody who is buying a $500,000 house that turn around and said, you know what? That 7% interest rate, don't like it. I'm going to stay on the sideline. Or a seller who turns around and says, I don't want to sell because I have a 3% interest rate and I don't want to have a 7% interest rate on the new house that I buy. Okay? The way our product works is this. The interest rate is fixed for 5 years. Or if you do a 7-year arm, 7 years. Or if I do a 10-year arm, 10 years. Okay? After that, the rate could go up, down, or stay the same. I am doing, especially on the higher end. So if you have people in Buck County, Montgomery County, buying a $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 house, the difference between having a 7% interest rate and having a 5.3, a 5.25, a 5.6, the difference there, you're talking about $500 a month. Now, the whole thinking and what initial conversation is, I ask them a question saying, hey, I have a quick question for you. Do you believe interest rates are going to come down in the next 5 years? If they say no, great. Let's look at a 30-year fixed. These are where the rates are at, blah, 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 blah. Okay? If they say, yes, I do believe interest rates are going to come down. Well, you have two options. We can do a 30-year fixed or we could do an ARM. The reason why we may want to consider an ARM is, well, if I could save you $500 a month, $600 a month, why don't we do that? You believe interest rates are going to come down, so then in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we can refinance you when interest rates hit that 5%, 5.25%, 5.5%. And you would have saved $5,000 a year. Boom, 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 every year that you've had it. Then you turn around and say, well, now you're making me have to refinance. You're going to refinance no matter what. Because if I turn around and I call, or any mortgage company calls, say, hey, Mrs. Jones, I see you have a 7% interest rate. Interest rates are 5.25%. I can save you $600 a month. Do you want to refinance? They're going to say, absolutely. Just like everybody did in 2021. 2020, 2021. Everybody had 30-year fixes and everybody refinanced because they wanted to get down to their 3%. So they had a 4.5% interest rate, 5, boom, they refinanced to the 3. So you're refinancing no matter what, if you believe interest rates are coming down. Okay? I've had, I can't even say, it's like at least 20 people turned around and said, this is great. I want to do an ARM. I want to save the money. It's a no-brainer. And on vacation homes, if you have a vacation home, there's a hit on a vacation home. I don't have a hit. So I can give somebody who's buying a vacation home down in Wildwood, Margate, wherever the hell they're buying their vacation home, I can give them an interest rate in the 5s for them, as opposed to them being in the mid-7s, because there's a hit for an investment home on a regular conventional loan. It's a huge thing. Keep it in the back of your mind. It's an option. It's not for somebody buying a $200,000 house. The spread's not big enough. Why risk something for $100? That doesn't make sense. Not a first-time home buyer. This is somebody who's buying a house, $600,000, $700,000. They're putting their 20% down, and it makes sense to them because they believe interest rates will go down and they might as well save some money. Yes?
So average cost for a refinance?
$4,000. Right, Joshua?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so just throwing that out there. Also, this is the SOFR rate. This is what the index is tied to, okay? If you look, during the COVID years, it was basically 0. Then when the Fed raised interest rates, it went up. Now that the Fed cut rates, it's coming down. Even though interest rates 7%, 7.25%, this rate is coming down because it's a short-term rate and it's following the Fed fund. Not 100%, it's a different index, but it's following that. So if the Fed cuts rates more, this is just going to keep on coming down. So in 5 years from now, you don't have to refinance. If this rate is, 4.5, why would you refinance? You could, depending on where the 30-year fix is, but you don't have to. Okay. And Philadelphia only. Okay? So, this program, you must do housing counseling before. Must do housing counseling before signing an agreement of sale. You must do counseling before. So, it's very, very similar to the way Philly First works. Philly First, you have to do counseling before signing an agreement of sale. Okay? The nice thing about Lyft is it doesn't care about lien position. So if you do counseling, they're going to automatically probably qualify you for Philly First. So Philly First is $10,000. This is $15,000. Once again, Philly First requires to be in second lien position. This does not care. So this could be in third. It's forgivable in 5 years. Okay, every year $3,000 is forgiven. You can use some of the money to pay debt to qualify. $5,000. It also gives you a home warranty. It also gives you $1,500 emergency cash if it's not covered by the home warranty. Okay? But it is, as of right now, conventional only. Still waiting to get HUD approval for FHA. Okay, so that means the minimum credit score for this program is a 620, but If you're doing a conventional loan, you're not most likely not going to get an approval at 620 on a conventional loan. You're going to need higher credit scores.
So then it's not 620.
Minimum credit score for the program is 620, but you still need to qualify for a program. So it's two different things. Think of the grants as a candle that goes on top of a cake. Okay? If I have a chocolate cake, I have a vanilla cake, I have a strawberry cake. If I put a candle on top of it, it becomes a birthday cake. It doesn't change if it's a chocolate, vanilla, or whatever. You still have to qualify for a loan.
So I think she said you can have a 620 credit score for a mortgage, but you need a 660 for this program.
No. This minimum credit score is a 620 to qualify for Lyft. But I still need my 30-year fixed product. Now I need to qualify for that.
But you have to qualify for the conventional loan,
Correct.
even though that's 620 and
Correct.
conventional is higher than 620.
Generally, yes.
So, okay.
So what should we be
The bottom
telling them?
line
What should we
is-
tell people who are interested, like what score?
Well, you can't tell them 620 technically because they have to qualify for a conventional loan,
Right.
which is higher than a 620. So in theory, you have to qualify for a conventional loan and
Which could be 700. So in theory, you could say that, hey, to qualify for this, you may need a 700 credit score. Even though the program itself says 620. But if I have a 620, I try running it through conventionally, I'll probably get a referred on it, not an approval when you run it through DU. Okay? That's as of right now. In a week from now,
Let's not say 620 is the minimum credit score.
Really not with every mortgage company.
You have to get approved for conventional loan in order to qualify.
Well, what's the number for conventional? Around 700?
that varies because you could be a 620 on a conventional loan, but if you're a 620 on a conventional loan, it's because you're probably putting 20% down. You have a ton of monies in reserves, things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just not a set linear number. You run it through DU. There's a ton of different factors when it comes to it, compensating factors. You know.
But then
So with
again,
this-
if you have a 620 and you have a ton of reserves, you probably don't qualify either. Is there a reserve cap on this?
25,000
So my
after closing. You know.
Yeah.
So you could put a lot of money down. You know what I mean? Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
My question is, with this, you can put more than the minimum payment?
Correct. There's no minimum payment restriction. It's not like KFIT. Okay? Now, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, they'll have FHA approval. Then, you could be okay with that. But also understand, when you start stacking grants on top of a regular loan, the underwriting gets a little bit harder. So you may not get an approval at a 620, even on a FHA, because you're stacking a grant on a regular FHA. You may need a 640 when you run it through DU. You have to run it through to see. But the more stuff you stack on top, the higher risk factors the algorithm is going to read. Okay? So, this is out here. It's new. And you can get $15,000. The negative thing on this is conventional only right now. Hopefully, that will change. They are trying for it.
How quickly you'll get it approved for FHA?
It's not us. It's the Lyft. It's the grant himself that are doing it. It's out of Washington, so I don't.
They're like working on it.
They're working on it. They've already talked about that. So
So what's the average, turnaround time for a contract? Should be
28 days.
28 days?
So it's similar to Philly First. So once we have an agreement of sale, we have to send it in to ACOPA because ACOPA is doing it. Once again, this is super limited on who's doing housing counseling. So ACOPA is the housing counseling agency who is doing this. So they'll send it in for the reservation. Once you get the reservation, it's good for 90 days. So you have to buy a house within the 90 days. You get one extension of 30.
Now you said it could be stacked, so it could be stacked with
Philly First,
and
KFIT,
door,
first front door. But the more you start stacking, the higher that underwriting standard is going to be. So you may not get an approved eligible. But in theory, you can.
And with the $1,500 emergency like, how does that work? You said it's the repairs that's not covered by the home warranty that they're gonna.
Right, it's a one-time thing. So if you have something that isn't being covered and you need $750, you can apply for that, and they turn around and say, okay, here's the $750. Boom, then that $1,500 is done. It's in the first year, period.
Does the home warranty automatically come with it?
Yes.
And is there a particular company or the buyer?
I don't know. No, they're not choosing. They're going to have a company.
They're gonna have a
Yep.
company?
Yeah, they have to give us that information. We don't have that.
And can you do a rate buy down on this?
Yes, you can. There's no limitations on like max financing, and they don't set the rate. Once again, PHFA sets the rate. Most of these other places do not.
And what's the max DTI? Would it be depend on the program, whether it's conventional FHA? Would it be
Correct.
based on that?
Correct. But if you're stacking with Philly First, now you have to worry about what their criteriums are.
You're gonna, when you're stacking, you go with the lowest or.
Right. So PHFA is 38.40, or I'm sorry, Philly First is 38.45 or whatever. So you have to fit within their parameters. This doesn't have it.
When does this roll out?
19th. But we should be, if you have anybody who wants to get pre-approved, they want a pre-approval done, and they can start their housing counseling now. Because they have to do their 4-hour counseling, and then they have to do their one-on-one. That may take 2 or 3 weeks.
For the pilot program?
Yes.
That's all done online, right?
Zoom. Yeah.
Zoom, and then I know with the pilot program, I had a client who was able to do it self-guided, right? But they have the class that's self-guided.
No. That would be KFIT, and you have to have above a 680 credit score to be able to do that. But if you have a counseling cert already and it's within the last 3 months, you can use the counseling cert and submit it to a COPA. The one-on-one has to be done by them.
So only if it was done in the last 3 months?
Right. That's what they're saying. If they're going to make an exception, I don't know. It's not. I don't.
And you said this one's forgivable in
5 years.
5 years?
So, I'm sorry, one more question. So the 15,000 total includes the 15,000 emergency cash?
No.
No.
15,000 is 15,000. On top of that, you have the home warranty and you have the 1,500.
And you automatically get that once you apply. It's not like a.
It's part of the deal.
So if they do both, Pat, do they do one housing counseling and one one-on-one?
Correct. Yeah, that'll automatically. Once you do the counseling, you're good. I mean, that'll cover, pretty much all the grants.
And then how's this one forgiven, Philly First?
Okay, Philly First. Since we were talking about Philly First, Philly First is through Philadelphia. Once again, you must be in Philadelphia. Can't be in Bucks County. Can't be in New Jersey. Philly First. Go Eagles. So anyway, that's $10,000. 6% capped at $10,000. You have income limits. With that, you have DTI limits with it. But if you qualify for the Lyft, most likely you're going to qualify for this. Okay? Because they pretty much mirrored them somewhat. So it can be stacked. You can do it. And this one, once again, same as the Lyft, must do counseling prior to signing an agreement of sale. So that's why if we start people off with counseling now, by the time February comes around, all they have to do is put their reservation in and they're good to go. Yes.
Sorry. So if for the Lyft program, if you start the counseling now, your 90 days don't start until the 19th, right?
Your 90 days doesn't start until you get your reservation.
So, and you won't get your reservation until the 19th?
You won't get your reservation until the housing counseling submits it to Lyft. They review everything, and then they send you your reservation.
Got it.
So that won't happen until after the 19th, to answer your
And
question.
that'll probably take a couple of weeks for that.
Couple weeks. Shouldn't take more than a couple weeks, but because you have to do your Saturday class, and then you have to do your one-on-one. Schedule that.
So are those the same, like those Urban League?
No, this is through a COPA.
What is that?
Affordable housing or a COPA, affordable whatever. I don't know.
Are they one of them?
It's
The
just-
same way to sign up in Eventbrite?
Yes, the same thing. No, it wouldn't be there. What you do is when you go on a COPA's website, when you go on there, in turn, it'll show you all the classes, and then you register right there.
Do you have a direct contact with Google?
You register right online with them. So you can call. They're on Broad Street. One of their offices is on Broad Street, North Broad. But
Affordable housing centers of Pennsylvania.
that's exactly what it is. And you can Google it, you save it, and you have it. And it doesn't matter what grants they're doing. You just send them there, and in this way, it opens up the lift for them.
Yeah, only because I know with like Urban League, we had like Abraham studies with Urban League.
Correct. Well, yeah, they're a little bit different, but you can call. They have a receptionist, whatever. But if you turn around and say, "Hey, I need to do housing counseling," they're going to tell you, "Hey, just register right online."
Was your house really first again? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Philly First.
Yeah.
That's forgiven in 15 years.
I saw last night the White House froze all federally funded everything. Now, is that going to affect the FHA loans?
No,
No? All right.
no, whatever they did, something different. Okay.
What site do you use for income? Find out what the area income is. Isn't that what you said, it's 80% of the income?
80%. So it starts. It's factored out a little bit differently. It's factored out a little differently because it goes by family size. So it's just not, and it's qualifying income. So like I don't want to get too much in the weeds with it. So I could be. There you go. I could be a single person with, a couple kids, or a wife, or whatever the case may be, and it goes by family size, and it's qualifying income. So the 80% really may be 90,000, not 60 some odd thousand. It gets a little tricky. Yeah, and that's the thing with these grants. They all operate basically the same, but there's a little bit of difference. Okay. Okay.
Hey, Pat, is this one combining the first two that we talked about, or is this something different?
That's something different,
Oh.
but you, in theory, could combine. Okay, so FFD, opening up in March, $15,000, forgivable in 5 years, $3,000 a year. Doesn't care about lien position on this one. Okay. Keys to equity, $20,000, true grant. The day you walk out of settlement, that money's forgiven, that $20,000, true grant. That opens up in April. So when I'm telling you there's a lot of money, there's a lot of money out there.
Keys to equity, is that like, is that this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that shows, that's both FFD and keys to equity.
With keys to equity, is that, lender specific?
Yes. Yeah, you have to be a bank, community bank, just like FFD. No, keys to equity, FFD can be anywhere. Income limits vary, anywhere between 60 some odd thousand up to 130,000. So, income. I think if we really bog down on income limits and all that, you guys are going to go crazy, trying to figure all that out, saying, "Oh shit, what was this? What was that?"
Is there a way that you have like one sheet with all the grant programs and the max you can get.
I feel like that might help us help you, so we're not sending you a bunch of people that don't qualify. If we have like a quick checklist of like,
Like you put first front door up to this, neighborhood width up to this.
Well, see, but
This up to that.
yeah, I get that, but the only issue with that is they open and close at all different times. And, you know, so and then how many bullet points am I putting in there? Because there's going to be a ton of.
Call to find out more. The goal is to get a call to action, right?
Right.
Get them to just touch base with like just hey, all these programs, like maybe just do a disclaimer. All programs start and end, they go out of money, it's all based on. I'll email you.
With a piece of equity, is that, ongoing, like, or is it like first front door?
Like first front door. Runs out of money pretty quickly. It's $20,000. True grant. And the income limit's up to like $137,000. Keys equity.
and that opens in April?
Yes, but people need to bring their, give their information. So like last year, for first front door and keys of equity, you know, we ended up reserving like 26 of them for people, and the money ran out quick because, you know, you're able to, no. Once you reserve it, you get it, but the money runs out fast.
But what if you don't sell it? Like, what do they do with the extra money?
It just goes back into the kitty, but you have like 6 months to settle. So typically, you know, you should settle within 6 months, and you can always ask for an extension.
That's good to know.
But the deal with it is, it runs out relatively quickly. FFD and the keys.
And neighborhood Lyft isn't, as of now, it doesn't have like a.
266. 266 loans we could do with the Lyft.
How many are you making?
I don't know. The RNIH, there was 185. I did 140. Okay, the last one I'll go over super quick is KFIT. A lot of you guys know about KFIT. Okay, KFIT, you need a 660 credit score. You do not need to be a first-time home buyer in Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a target area. So if I own a house, I want to keep it as a rental, and then I want to turn around and buy a house using KFIT, I can do it. Don't need to be a first-time home buyer. Don't need to sell the house. Okay? 660 and above credit scores. This program is generally always around 5% of the sale price you get. So if you're buying a $300,000 house, $15,000. Forgivable over 10 years. 10% every year. Forgivable in 10 years. That requires to be in second lien position, just like Philly First, so you cannot put Philly First and KFIT together. But all the other programs I mentioned, you could, if we get approved eligibles, because the other ones don't care about lien position. And last one here as a shameless plug. Shameless.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if you're stacking KFIT and,
You need that one. Good.
if you're stacking KFIT and let's just say one of these other programs that have, like Lyft, for instance, you have to go with the requirements of KFIT, correct?
Both. They both have to meet, but yes.
The more restrictive requirements as well.
Correct. Yep.
All these programs you can do that answering through a COPA, basically, like as soon as you
Everyone can go through a COPA.
just get them-
Just like we used to say, go through Urban League. If you're looking at an RNIH, just go through there because they can approve everything. You go through a COPA, they can approve every other program. Okay. Last thing. Number one in the state of Pennsylvania. We do these grants. We're kind of good at them. We understand how they work. Shameless plug. I know, Pat. Shameless plug.
Dude, I tell everybody, I'm a grant getter in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
You go back.
Does anybody have any questions about anything? I went over a bunch of stuff. I wanted to give you a little bit of market-related type of information, and then, of course, the grant type stuff. Could be about anything. Go ahead.
For the KFIT, how much do they have to put down?
Depends on what program you're doing. You can do VA, which is 0% down because it's 100% financing. You can do USDA, which is 0% down. You can do FHA, 3.5%, or you can do conventional starting at 3%. So it depends on the program. Remember, the grant is a candle that goes on top of the cake. It does not change the cake.
And with neighborhood Lyft, you can use it on all of those?
No, remember, it's just conventional. For right now, we're thinking we're going to be able to do FHA as well.
And the keys to whoever?
That doesn't matter. FFD, keys, doesn't matter. Any program.
How much is the Philly first?
15,000, forgivable in 5 years. I did. He said that rents were going to go down. I said, check out Ed Rogers' podcast.
You're saying rents are going to go up. I saw you.
No, you said the rents were going to go down. People can't afford it. And I cited you. That's why inflation numbers are going to keep on coming down because that represents 40% of PPI, CPI, all that stuff. CPE or PCE. Yeah, all the alphabets. All the alphabets. Any questions about anything?
All right, so which programs do we stack together to get the most amount of money?
Well, we're going to have to run it through to make sure it all works. But Lyft, First Front Door, and Keys, you'll be able to stack with KFIT and Philly First. So Philly First, KFIT, both require to be in second lien position. So think of them as separate. Okay? Then those other three programs, those can be stackable. Also, what we could do is, and what we're doing is the interest rate, the non-subordinate financing for PHFA. That interest rate's 5.875. So I'll put the Lyft on there, and maybe Philly First. Give somebody $25,000 and a 5.875% interest rate, because if they're buying a $200,000 house, that $25,000 is more than enough money. They don't need any more money to get in. But now they get a 5.875% interest rate as opposed to a 6.5 or whatever. So there's ways of mixing and matching and doing all sorts of stuff. That's what I'm saying. Don't bother. Just understand the key for you guys is to have conversations. Okay, the number one thing you could do. It's really wise, gentlemen, in a podcast mention it. The number one thing you could do is have conversations, right, Ed? Have conversations. The more people you talk to, think of it as a bucket, and you fill up those conversations. Eventually, it'll just start overflowing with transactions. So it's conversations. Ask, hey, what's your sticking point? Why aren't you buying a house? I don't have any money. Well, did you know you could put 3% down? Do you know that there's $10, $15, $20, $30,000 of grant money out there? Would that change anything?
But the Lyft's not coming until April, right?
What's that?
The Lyft one's not available till April.
February 19th, Lyft.
Thank you.
Then if the sticking point is, interest rates are too high, I can't afford anything. Well, okay, you could, in theory, as a first-time home buyer, be at 5.875. You could be in the fives.
We're talking to somebody now about it.
100%.
Bill just sent an email back to him for 5 years, and I said, hey, not to throw a wrench, but what about the 10 year? Because I think the buyers are concerned about the 5 year.
Yep. Right. Right now, if somebody has a 740 or above credit score putting 20% down, we're talking about 5.75% interest rate on a 10-year. 10-year. So that you're talking about easily 1% lower than anything else out there. And that's the difference between somebody sitting on the sideline versus jump in.
How much of a savings that is over, let's say the rates don't go down in 10 years? Like from 7, like say 7 to 5.
Well, I can tell you this. There's never been in the history since 1950 to now that there's been a 10-year window that interest rates have not come down. Not to say it won't happen. Nobody has a crystal ball. Interest rates could stay high for the next 30 years. Nobody knows. But this never happened. It just doesn't.
And we're about how many years into it now? 2 years?
More than that.
Because rates didn't really start going up until what year, 2023?
No, 2022 in July. They started going up. 2020. So by the time October of 2022 hit, we were at 7.25% interest rate. So we started out the year with interest rates at 3%. They more than doubled in a 8-month period of time. That's where the market just stopped because it was such a shock. Absolutely stopped. And actually, home prices actually dropped. There was like a correction of like 10%. But in the beginning of the year, it went up so much, it's still, for the year, home appreciation was still up. It wasn't a negative.
All right, so how does everybody contact you? Do not text us 267 because they won't respond.
That's on the flyer right here. You have.
They don't. It's a landline.
It's a landline.
We have a landline, but we can have text capability. You have to set that up.
Yeah, you guys.
Okay, so you have phone numbers, you have contact information, all on here. Okay? Typically, QOM Philly goes to the team. The way it works is I go out, I shake hands, I kiss babies, and Bill and Jared answer phones. They gather all the information. Once they gather all the information, I'll review it. I'll send out a pre-approval, say congratulations, that kind of thing. Once somebody's under contract, and that's when I really work with the processor to get the client to the closing table.
So should we send the email to
QOM Philly
QOM?
goes to the team.
Mortgage bill, that's
Oh, there we
what
go.
it means. Took me like a year to figure
Yeah.
it out.
You.
I was like, what's QOM?
I think the same thing with HOA.
Okay? So, did I give you enough information?
Couple times.
First front door is until April.
March. That's going to open up in March.
And the other one starts the day after taxes are due?
The keys open up in
It says
April.
April 16th.
How much is left?
15. 15K.
And then one more, FFT.
15.